I bought my parents a luxury car and paid off their debt, but my dad scoffed, finally doing something useful, huh? At Christmas, my mom handed me a bill, saying, "Since you're the rich one now." I took a deep breath and said, "Actually, that's about to change." Their reactions were priceless when they realized. I should have known. I should have expected it. But some foolish, desperate part of me had clung to hope. Hope that, just this once, my parents would prove me wrong. The house smelled of cinnamon and pine. Christmas lights twinkled against the frosted windows, casting a warm glow over the perfectly decorated living room. My mother sat across from me, her manicured fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. My father leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The tension was thick enough to choke on. "So," my father finally said, his voice dripping with something between condescension and mild amusement. "Finally doing something useful, huh?" The words sliced deeper than they should have. I swallowed hard and forced a smile. I just wanted to give back. "You both struggled for years, sacrificed everything to keep the house, pay the bills. Now, you don't have to worry anymore." I had spent months planning the perfect Christmas gift. A luxury car with a bow in the driveway. Their debt, gone. Every financial burden they had ever complained about, wiped clean. And yet, my father looked at me like I was a child who had just presented him with a crayon drawing and expected a standing ovation. My mother, on the other hand, took a slow sip of wine before reaching into her purse. She pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table toward me. "Merry Christmas," she said with a tight-lipped smile. I frowned and picked it up. The envelope was thin, and the moment I opened it, my stomach dropped. A bill. Utilities. Mortgage. Miscellaneous expenses. I looked up, my pulse hammering. "What is this?" She shrugged. "Since you're the rich one now, I thought you wouldn't mind covering the rest." The rest. As if the car and the cleared debt weren't enough. As if I owed them more. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling slightly as I set the paper down. 1,000 responses rushed to the tip of my tongue, but only one made it out. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "that's about to change." My father's smirk faltered. My mother's brow creased ever so slightly. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. I've been too generous, too trusting, but I've learned something important this year. I met their eyes, watching for the moment realization dawned. "Nothing is ever enough for you, is it?" Silence. Then, my father scoffed. "Oh, don't be dramatic. We raised you, fed you, gave you everything." "You gave me everything?" I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "No, you took everything, and I let you." My mother pursed her lips, her fingers tightening around the stem of her glass. "We're your parents. It's our right." I stared at her, trying to process the sheer audacity of those words. Their right. As if my success, my hard-earned money, my life belonged to them by default. It hit me then, harder than it ever had before. They didn't love me. Not the way parents should love their child. They saw me as an investment. A resource. And the second I stopped giving, they would turn on me. Fine. Let them. I stood, pushing my chair back with deliberate slowness. "Merry Christmas," I said, my voice like ice. "Enjoy the car while you still can." I turned and walked out, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. They thought they had won. They had no idea what was coming next. The cold night air bit at my skin as I stepped outside, my breath coming out in short, sharp puffs. The Christmas lights on the house flickered, their glow almost mocking. I clenched my fists, the weight of betrayal pressing against my chest. I had spent years trying to prove my worth to them. Years working late nights, grinding my way to success, hoping that one day, they'd finally see me as more than just an extension of their own selfish desires. But tonight was the wake-up call I should have had long ago. I climbed into my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mother's voice echoed in my head. "We're your parents. It's our right." I slammed my hand against the dashboard, letting out a bitter laugh. They're right. I had been a fool, but not anymore. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A notification flashed across the screen. "Bank alert. Large transfer request pending approval." My stomach twisted. I hadn't made any large transfers. My fingers moved on autopilot, unlocking my phone and opening the banking app. My breath hitched. $250,000. Transfer to joint account. Pending approval joint account. The one my parents had access to. The one I had stupidly set up years ago when they convinced me that family should share everything. My blood ran cold. I scrolled through the transaction history, my heart pounding harder with every entry. Thousands, no, hundreds of thousands, of dollars, drained over time. Disguised as household expenses, emergency repairs, loan payments. Lies. All of it. They had been siphoning money from me for years. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to breathe. The anger was hot, nearly blinding, but I couldn't afford to lose control. Not now. Not when I finally saw the truth for what it was. I canceled the transfer with a few swift taps, locking the account down before calling the bank's fraud department. Within minutes, The representative confirmed what I already knew. My parents had been exploiting my trust, my generosity. And the worst part? I had let them. A sharp knock on my car window made me jump. I turned to see my brother standing outside, his expression unreadable. Reluctantly, I rolled down the window. He shoved his hands into his jacket pockets, shifting on his feet. You're really leaving? I exhaled slowly. Yeah. He hesitated. Look, I didn't know they were doing that. His voice was quieter now, uncertain. I mean, I knew they expected you to help out, but he trailed off, guilt creeping into his eyes. I studied him for a moment. My brother had always been the golden child, the one they coddled, the one who could do no wrong. They never demanded from him what they did for me. And yet, he wasn't them. Not completely. Check your accounts, I said evenly. If they did this to me, they might have done it to you too. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. What are you gonna do? I gripped the steering wheel. Fix it. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about justice. And I wasn't walking away without it. I barely slept that night. Not because of anger. No, that had settled into something colder. Sharper. It was clarity that kept me awake. By morning, I had a plan. I spent the first few hours locking down everything. The bank accounts. The investments. The assets they had access to. If they thought they could keep bleeding me dry, they were about to get the shock of their lives. By noon, my phone started blowing up. Mom, what happened to the account? I can't log in. Dad, call me. Now. Mom, don't do this to us. Dad, if you think this is funny, you're wrong. I ignored them. Let them stew in their own panic. But this wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. Because if they had stolen from me once, there was a chance they had done it before. And if they were willing to lie to me about this, what else had they lied about? I needed proof. I grabbed my laptop and started digging. Old records. Transactions. Documents I hadn't looked at in years. And that's when I found it. A contract. Signed in my name. A loan I had never taken out. One that had been approved years ago when I was still building my career. $100,000. Supposedly to help with family expenses. Except I had never seen it before. Never agreed to it. My parents had forged my signature. I sat back, my pulse pounding in my ears. This wasn't just financial abese. This was fraud. I took a shaky breath, staring at the screen. This changed everything. They hadn't just taken advantage of me. They had committed a crime. And now? Now they were going to pay for it. I didn't go back to the house. Not yet. Instead, I called a lawyer. He listened carefully as I laid everything out. Every stolen dollar, every unauthorized transaction, and now, the fraudulent loan in my name. He didn't hesitate. You have a solid case. If you want to press charges, you can. Press charges. Against my own parents. I gripped the phone tighter. What happens if I do? They'll be investigated. If found guilty, they could face legal consequences, including jail time. Jail. For my mother. My father. The people who raised me. The people who had used me. The ones who had never loved me the way they should have. I swallowed hard. I need time to think. But deep down, I already knew my answer. They had made me believe I owed them. That my success belonged to them. But they were wrong. And now? It was time they learned what real consequences felt like. I sat in my car outside the lawyer's office, gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers ached. Jail. For them. It felt surreal. Like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at the irreversible decision waiting below. A part of me, the old me, whispered that this was too much. That pressing charges against my own parents made me just as heartless as they were. But then I thought about the years of manipulation. The stolen money. The forged loan. The way they had looked at me on Christmas night, not as their child, but as a bank account. They had never hesitated to take from me. So why was I hesitating now? My phone buzzed in the passenger seat. Another call from my mother. The 10th one today. I let it ring. Then, almost as if the universe itself had decided to remind me exactly who I was dealing with, a new text came through. Mom, we need to talk. It's important. Mom, you wouldn't turn your back on your own family, right? Mom, because if you do, I don't think you'll like what happens next. I exhaled slowly, my blood running ice cold. A threat. Not even a veiled one. I knew my mother's games well enough to recognize what she was doing, trying to get inside my head, trying to scare me into submission. And maybe, once upon a time, it would have worked. Not anymore. I started the engine and drove. Not home. To them. The house looked different in the daylight. Colder. Smaller. Like the illusion had finally shattered, and I was seeing it for what it really was. A prison I had spent my whole life trying to escape. I didn't bother knocking. I walked in. My parents were in the kitchen. My father stood by the counter, arms crossed, while my mother sat at the table, a cup of coffee in front of her. She looked up when I entered, her lips curling into something that might have once passed as a smile. There you are, she said smoothly. We were wondering when you'd finally come to your senses. I let out a short laugh. Senses? I pulled out my phone, tapping the screen. You mean like the sense to check my own financial records? To find proof that you committed fraud in my name? Her face paled, just slightly. But my father? He didn't even blink. Don't be ridiculous, he said, his voice as dismissive as ever. We did what any good parents would do. We invested in our child's future. I clenched my jaw. By stealing from me? By giving you responsibility? My mother cut in sharply. You wouldn't even have that money if it weren't for us. We gave you life, gave you opportunities. No, my voice was firm, unshaken. I earned everything I have, despite you. Silence. Then my father exhaled through his nose, shaking his head like I was a petulant child. This is getting ridiculous. What do you even want? I took a step forward, meeting his gaze head on. I want you to understand that this isn't a game anymore. I've spoken to a lawyer. I have evidence. And unless you return every stolen cent, including the fraudulent loan, I'll press charges. My mother scoffed. You wouldn't. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. Try me. She faltered. For the first time in my life, I saw something I had never seen in her before. Fear. My father, however, wasn't so easily shaken. He straightened, his lips curling into a slow, mocking smirk. You think you're in control here? He chuckled. Go ahead. Call the cops. Take us to court. But I promise you, by the time we're done, you'll regret it. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just arrogance. It was certainty. And that's when it hit me. They were hiding something. Something bigger. Something I hadn't found yet. I exhaled slowly. You know what? You're right. Maybe I shouldn't go to the police. Maybe I should start somewhere smaller. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapped a few buttons, then turned the screen toward them. A live recording, broadcasting everything to my lawyer's office. My mother gasped. My father's smirk vanished. Now, I said, pocketing my phone. Let's try this again. I took a step back, the weight of power finally shifting into my hands. Tell me the truth. Silence. Thick. Heavy. For the first time in my life, they weren't the ones in control. My father's jaw clenched, his knuckles whitening against the countertop. My mother's lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to protest but couldn't find the words. I took a step closer, my voice unwavering. You said I'd regret this. Why? What are you hiding? No answer. Just the sound of my father's steady, controlled breathing. I wasn't leaving without the truth. I already know about the stolen money, the fraudulent loan, but something tells me there's more. I paused, watching their expressions carefully. And if you don't tell me now, I'll find it myself. My mother's eyes flicked to my father. Just for a second. Just enough. There it is. I turned my gaze on him. You knew this would happen eventually, didn't you? His nostrils flared. I don't know what you're talking about. Lying won't help you now. I pulled my phone back out. Everything you've said is already recorded. If you're smart, you'll start talking before I find whatever it is you're trying so hard to bury. Something in his expression shifted. A crack in the armor. Then, finally, you don't know what you're dealing with, he muttered. I tilted my head. Then enlightened me. His hands flexed at his sides. His shoulders squared. And then, in a voice so cold it sent a chill down my spine, he said, we never planned on letting you leave. The room felt smaller. The walls closer. I stared at him, my stomach twisting. What? My mother spoke up, her voice eerily calm. You were always meant to take care of us. That's how family works. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Family? You don't see me as family. You see me as a paycheck. Her gaze darkened. And what do you think we are to you? A charity case? I gritted my teeth. I helped you because I thought you needed it. Because I believed, stupidly, that you actually cared about me. But the second I stopped giving, you tried to take. My father exhaled sharply. And what now? You think you can just cut us off? I held his gaze, my voice like steel. I don't think. I know. His eyes narrowed. His fingers twitched at his sides. And for the first time, I saw it. The desperation. The fear. Not because they were afraid of losing me. Because they were afraid of losing everything they had stolen. A slow smirk curled at the corner of my lips. You thought you could keep me trapped. Thought you could guilt me into taking care of you forever. I let out a small chuckle. But you forgot something important. My mother stiffened. My father's breath hitched. I leaned in, lowering my voice just enough to let the words sink in. I learned from you. I pulled out the final document I had printed this morning. A lawsuit, prepared and ready to go. Fraud. Theft. Financial exploitation. I already filed the report, I said, watching the color drain from their faces. By this time tomorrow, the investigation will be official. Your accounts? Frozen. That car I bought you? Repossessed. And that little house you're so proud of. I shrugged. Well, let's just say, the mortgage you never paid is about to catch up to you. My mother gasped. My father's mouth opened, then closed. Checkmate. They had stolen from me. Lied to me. Manipulated me. But now it was their turn to lose everything. I turned for the door, my heart pounding, but my steps steady. Just before I walked out, I glanced back one last time. You were right about one thing, I said quietly. I will regret this. I met my father's dark, seething gaze. But not for the reasons you think. Then I walked out. And this time, I never looked back. It took months for everything to settle. The fraud case went through. Their accounts were investigated, their assets frozen. They tried to fight it, of course. Tried to paint me as the ungrateful child, the villain in their tragic story. But the truth had a way of catching up. The court ruled in my favor. They were forced to pay back every stolen cent. And when they couldn't, their house went up for sale. They lost everything. My brother reached out once, after it was all over. He wasn't like them. Not yet, at least. He asked if I regretted it. If I felt guilty. I told him the truth. I did. I grieved the parents I had wanted them to be. But I did not grieve the ones they actually were. Because for the first time in my life, I was finally free.
يعني هو يعني احنا كل سنة بيبقى فيه تطور، بس هو الشكل العام انه بيبقى فيه تنظيم كويس في كل سنة، وهو الجديد المرة دي ان الحياة هي اللي بتغطي المهرجان. وتحية لكل العاملين في الحياة مني ومن فرقتي الموسيقية.
وعايزة
يعني
انوه لحضرتك كمان انه النهارده الحفلة ترند. حفلة حضرتك يمكن كان في ترند الأول الأستاذ علي الحجار وحضرتك النهارده. فيعني أعتقد إن ده نجاح كبير جدا، كمان المشاهدين اللي بيشوفونا على التلفزيون.
ما كانش ليا حظ إن أنا أحضر حفلة الأستاذ علي.
أيوة
لكن هتابع بقى بعد كده كل الحاجات.
تابع وتشوف بقى الترند بقى والحاجات. إن شاء الله. سريعا كده أي جديد عند حضرتك بتقدمه الفترة اللي جاية؟
يعني أنا